Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. One head, two tails. Yang yang. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Three tails, old yin. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. We'll read a section from Understanding Reality, a Taoist alchemical classic, a 10th century text on the principles of inner alchemy. The Moon on the West River, 12 verses. Errant thought is not to be forcibly annihilated. Why should true suchness be sought? Buddhas equally act on the fundamental essence. Delusion and enlightenment are not confined to before and after. When enlightened, you become a Buddha instantly. When deluded, you sink in the flow for myriad eons. If you can accord with true practice for a moment, you annihilate the defilement of countless wrongs. The fundamental essence is the essence of enlightenment, in which there is no errant thought and no true suchness. It is only because people of the world have delusion and enlightenment that there are the terms errant thought and true suchness. When you are deluded about essence, you conceive erroneous thoughts. When you realize essence, you return to true suchness. When you awaken to suchness, you instantly become a Buddha. When you conceive errant thoughts, you sink in their flow for eons. Errant thought or true suchness, it is simply a matter of the difference between delusion and enlightenment. If you try to forcibly annihilate errant thought and true suchness, and seek true suchness without enlightenment, how can you get to see true suchness? The concluding line says, if you can accord with true practice for a moment, you annihilate the defilement of countless wrongs, then you can be perfectly clear. Fundamentally, there is no origination or extinction, yet we insist on seeking divisions marking birth and death. As for sin and merit, these too are baseless. When has the subtle body ever increased or decreased? I have a round, clear mirror, which has hitherto always been covered. Today I polish it so it reflects the universe, and myriad images are clearly revealed. The fundamental essence of enlightenment, true suchness, has no origination or extinction. There's no possibility of increasing or decreasing it. It is because of attachment to objects that there is origination and extinction, birth and death. This is just like a mirror being covered. That is all. If you can polish away the accumulated dust of past influences, it is round and bright, without defect. Using this to reflect the universe, myriad forms are clearly revealed. What producing or destroying them is there? The essence of the self enters the essence of the Buddhas. The essence of Buddhahood is everywhere thus. From on high, the cold light shines in the cold springs. One moon appears in 1,000 ponds. Its smallness is smaller than a hair. Its greatness fills the universe. High and low do not restrict it. It may be square or round. What long or short, deep or shallow can you say it has? The essence of the self, the essence of Buddhahood, the essence of human beings in all nations and lands are all the same. Not more in sages, not less in ordinary beings. It is like the single disk of the bright moon appearing in 1,000 ponds. This essence can be small, can be great, can be high, can be low, can be square, can be round, can be shallow, can be deep, can be long, can be short. Yet it is not confined to small or great, square or round, high or low, shallow or deep. It is just the ordinary people, It is just that ordinary people use it every day but do not know it. The principle governing the teaching fundamentally has no doctrine. The emptiness that empties emptiness also is not empty. Quiet and clamor, speech and silence are originally the same. Why bother to talk of a dream in a dream? There is no function in the function that has function. Effort is applied in the effortless effort. It is like the fruit naturally reddening as it ripens. Do not ask how to cultivate the seed. The Buddha's expositions of doctrine really have no dogma. When a Buddha speaks of emptiness, it is really not empty. The doctrineless doctrine is called true teaching. Non-empty emptiness is called true emptiness. True teaching, true emptiness, quiet or clamor, speech or silence, it is just a matter of unconsciously following the laws of God. What doctrine is there to preach? What emptiness is there to expound? To insist on preaching doctrine and expounding emptiness is like talking of a dream in a dream. How can you know the essence of true teaching, true emptiness? Tranquil and unperturbed, yet sensitive and effective. Sensitive and effective, yet tranquil and unperturbed. This is no function within function, having function. Applying effort within effortless effort. That there is no function within function having function means that the teaching is based on emptiness. That one applies effort within effortless effort means that there is teaching within emptiness. The teaching basically empty, emptiness having a teaching. It is neither true nor false, nor not existent nor non-existent. Round and bright, unobscured, after a long time there is spontaneous release, just as fruit naturally ripens on a tree. This itself is cultivating the true seed of the essence of enlightenment. There is no more need to ask how to cultivate the seed. Good or bad, forget thoughts all at once. Let neither prosperity nor decline concern the mind. In dark and light, now concealed, now revealed, float or sink as you may. According to your lot, eat when hungry, drink when thirsty. Spirit calm, serene, ever tranquil, one may sit or recline, sing or hum. The autumn water in one pond is blue and deep. When the wind blows, do not be startled. Let it be as it is. The overall meaning of this poem is in the lines, spirit calm, serene, ever tranquil. One may sit or recline, sing or hum. Once the spirit is calm, good and bad, prosperity and decline, dark and light, obscurity and prominence, floating and sinking do not enter the mind. Passing the days according to circumstances, you sit and recline, sing and hum. Untrammeled, free, without thought or worry, like the autumn water in a pond, blue and deep, without waves, even when there is wind. What fear is there of vexation or upset? No need to try to annihilate objects. Enlightenment is an artificial definition. Matter and voidness, light and dark are basically equal. Stop dividing reality and falsehood into two. When you understand, it is called the Pure Land. There is no more India or Tao Te Ching. Who says paradise is the Western heaven? When you understand, Amitabha appears in the world. The essence of enlightenment is originally round and bright, clean and naked, bare and untrammeled. Not matter, not void, not light, not dark, not real, not false. Those who understand this attain Buddhahood on the spot. What's the need to try to extinguish feelings about objects? It is because so many people do not understand that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas provisionally defined enlightenment to get people to return to the immediate by way of the gradual, so as to realize Buddhahood. Enlightenment means the true way, in that by returning from error to truth, there is a gradual awakening. Others, self, beings, lives. How can we divide that and this, high and low? Reality spontaneously shines throughout, with no I or they. One need not seek it, thought after thought. Has seeing what is right ever been seeing what is right? Hearing what is wrong is not necessarily hearing what is wrong. Various functions have never controlled each other. In life and death, who can hinder you? Others, self, beings, lives, that, this, high, low, I, they, seeing, hearing, right, wrong, these are all artificial characterizations. If you can penetrate them all with shining awareness and see through them completely, not being concerned with them, then life is as is. Death is as is. Life is all right. Death is all right too. Life and death present no obstacle, then you naturally understand life and death. If you cultivate practices and charity while dwelling on appearances, the resulting rewards will be limited to celestial and human spheres. It is like shooting an arrow up at the clouds. It will fall, simply because the force comes to an end. How can that compare to unfabricated reality? Returning to the original, reverting to simplicity, going back to pristine purity, objects forgotten, feelings ended, going along with natural reality. Thereby you realize acceptance of the truth of non-origination. Formless form is true form. True form does not come from the fruits of practices or charity performed while dwelling on appearances. It comes from reverting to pristine purity and simplicity, forgetting objects and ending feelings. When you find the true form, every action, every stillness is natural reality. You spontaneously attain acceptance of the truth of non-origination. The Surangama Sutra says, this person thereupon attains acceptance of the truth of non-origination. A commentary on the sutra says, true suchness is called non-origination. Truth has no contamination. Knowledge of truth is called acceptance. Once you have caught the fish or the rabbit, you naturally forget the net and the trap. The raft to cross the river, the ladder to the heights. Once you have reached the goal, they are abandoned. Before you are enlightened, you need explanations. After enlightenment, verbalizations become wrong. Even though these lines belong to non-contrivance, they too are to be shed. A net is a means to catch fish. Once you get the fish, you can forget the net. A trap is a means to catch rabbits. When you get the rabbit, you can forget the trap. A raft is a means to cross a river. When you reach the shore, you can leave the raft. A ladder is a means to climb up high. When you reach the height, you can leave the ladder. These are similes for words as a means to understand principles. When the principles are understood, one can forget the words. Though the lines about forgetting the net and trap, abandoning the raft and ladder, are telling people to understand true essence and fundamentally are in the realm of non-doing, one cannot immediately wind matters up with nihilistic inaction. By mere nihilistic inaction, how can one reach the state of sublime awareness of true thusness? It is necessary to shed this non-doing before one can deeply attain self-realization. After enlightenment, do not seek quiescence. Guide the deluded according to conditions. When views of annihilation and eternity are presented, there are expedients to guide back to reality. 5 eyes, 3 bodies, 4 knowledges, 6 perfections, and myriad practices cultivated equally. 1 orb of round light. A fine jewel helps others and can also save oneself. Buddhism considers realization of essence first, but that does not mean that after enlightenment there is then empty nothingness. It is necessary to take this empty essence back to reality. Only this is the true essence of Buddhahood. Therefore, the text says not to seek quiescence or extinction after enlightenment, but to guide the deluded for the time according to conditions. Guiding the deluded is the reason for practicing expedience and doing good works. The 5 eyes are the celestial eye, the eye of wisdom, the objective eye, the enlightened eye, and the physical eye. The 3 bodies are the pure body of reality, the complete body of reward, and the innumerable created bodies. The 4 knowledges are the great round mirror knowledge, the knowledge of essential equality, the subtle observing knowledge, or the subtly observing knowledge, and the knowledge of practical accomplishment. The 6 perfections are generosity, discipline, tolerance, diligence, meditation, and wisdom. The myriad practices are all expedients and good works. The 5 eyes, 3 bodies, 4 knowledges, 6 perfections, and myriad practices simultaneously cultivated, inwardly and outwardly, the basic essence of true thusness becomes clearer and clearer with refinement. Like a brilliant jewel penetrating obscurity, bringing the hidden to light. Helping others as well as oneself, it is always useful. How could it be just emptiness alone? I see people these days expounding essence who just boast of quickness in repartee. But when they meet actual situations, they are all the more deluded. How are they any different from the ignorant? What is preached should be put into practice. Only then is it called speech and action without defect. If you can use the sword of wisdom to cut the jewel, this is called the true knowledge of the enlightened. The important point in this verse is in the last line. The true knowledge of the enlightened is all pervasive. This is the sword of wisdom. By that true knowledge, one can get rid of error and return to truth. So it is called the sword of wisdom. Because that true knowledge is round and bright, unobscured, ever present, it is called a jewel. To cut the jewel does not mean to obliterate it, but to take it in, not allowing the shining of the light to operate outside. When speaking in terms of substance, it is called a jewel. When speaking in terms of function, it is called the sword of wisdom. The sword of wisdom, the jewel, and true knowledge are all one, not three things. This true knowledge is not obtained by talking. It can only be real if it is cultivated by personal practice. If one cannot personally practice it and only wants to talk about it, considering a quick wit to be insight, one will be confused in actual events. What will be accomplished? Therefore, when it says, if you are able to use the sword of wisdom to cut the jewel, this is called the true knowledge of the enlightened. Only when the words and actions are complete is it really truly knowledge. Is it really true knowledge? Verbal quickness in repartee is not true knowledge. If you want to understand the sublime path of birthlessness, it is all a matter of seeing the true mind for yourself. The true body has no form and no cause either. The pure spiritual body is just thus. This path is not non-being and not being, not in between, not to be sought there either. When both extremes are dismissed, abandon the middle. Once you see it, this is called supreme. Once you see the true mind, this is the sublime path. There is no need to seek the sublime path elsewhere. The true mind is unstained, unattached, unperturbed, unmoved, formless and soundless. This is also called the pure spiritual body. This mind, this body, is not existent, not non-existent, yet both existent and non-existent. It cannot be sought in being, cannot be sought in non-being, and cannot be found in neither being nor non-being. Since none of these three apply to it, try to think what it is. When you see this, you immediately transcend to birthlessness. This is called the sublime path of the supreme one vehicle. The true body and true mind are originally one. In terms of substance, it is called the true body. In terms of function, it is called the true mind. Substance and function as one, body and mind forgotten, physically and spiritually sublimated, merging with the Tao in reality. Isn't this what birthlessness means? Our inner or bottom trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken, which is Con, water. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, broken. This trigram is Zen thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the Trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. So Zen thunder above Kan water gives us hexagram. $40. Once our changing lines change, our old yins will transform into young yangs, giving us a bottom trigram of broken, solid, solid. This is the trigram. Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available, or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Our top or outer trigram will transform to solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram Dewy, lake or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Our secondary hexagram then will be Xun, wind or wood above Dewy, lake or marsh. Well, sorry, it's Dewy, lake or marsh above Xun, wind or wood. This will give us the hexagram. $28. We will read from I-ming's Taoist I-ching, translated by Thomas Cleary. I-ming wrote this in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Hexagram 40 has the succinct definition, liberation. taking advantage of the appropriate time to liberate positive primordial energy from the influence of negative conditioned energy. And 28, excess of the great, following desires, delighting in externals, inability to control strength. We will start with the text section, which contains our changing lines, moving on from there to the commentary section, which does not contain our changing lines. If we want to understand the answer to the question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, that question having the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces changing, or spirit or forces beneath this moment of time, we'll understand the answer when we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. Starting with our primary hexagram 40, liberation, solution. For liberation, the southwest is beneficial. When going nowhere, the return brings good fortune. When going somewhere, promptness brings good fortune. Explanation. Liberation means freeing. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is water, dangerous. When positive energy moves out of danger, action beyond danger moves according to the will, so it is called liberation. This hexagram represents taking advantage of the right time to gather the medicine. It follows on the previous hexagram, disharmony. Disharmony means yin and yang are not in harmony. Delight and attention are not appropriate. Negative energy is in charge of affairs, while positive energy is trapped. So this work of liberating the positive energy is essential. Liberating the positive energy is gathering the medicine. In gathering the medicine, it is important to know the right time. Otherwise, you will fumble, and negative energy will remain while positive energy will again slip away. Then even though the medicine be nearby, you cannot avail yourself of it. Understanding reality says, when lead meets winter, hasten to gather it. After the full moon, metal is worthless. When the first yang is born on the ground of earth, thereby producing thunder, the primordial energy comes from within nothingness, and the heart of heaven and earth turns. This is what is called finding companionship in the southwest. Just when lead meets winter and the great medicine appears, when the mind of Tao becomes active and the human mind is still, This spontaneous liberation is the portent of good fortune. Therefore, for liberation, the southwest is beneficial. When going nowhere, the return brings good fortune. Returning without going anywhere does not come about by human effort. It appears spontaneously at a given time and comes from nature. But once nature's time has arrived, human exertion is necessary. One should hasten to set about fostering positive energy and suppressing negative energy. When the celestial and the human act together, one uses the return of this one bit of positive energy to go back to where there is pure positivity without negativity. So the mind of Tao is always present and the human mentality is forever extinguished. Only then is one liberated from danger and difficulty and able to act freely in any way, just as one wills. This is why when going somewhere, promptness brings good fortune. If one is prompt, when the medicinal energy has just arisen, it belongs to the primordial. If one is tardy, once the medicinal energy has passed, it belongs to the temporal. If you promptly gather the medicinal energy when it has just arisen, then the primordial is stable and you gain good fortune. If you gather it only when the medicinal energy has passed, then temporal conditioning will reassert itself and you will be unfortunate. There is profound meaning in the words promptness brings good fortune. There is that which requires promptness. That is to say, when you reach the point where the first yang has just become active, you should advance the fire without delay. Now, before reading our changing lines, we'll read our supporting hexagram, 28, excess of the great. When the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends. It is good to go somewhere. That is developmental. Explanation. Excess of the great means there is an excess of yang energy. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is lake, joyous, and below is wind, entering. Going along with what is inside, delighting in externals, following what one desires, when happiness culminates, it produces grief. In the body of the hexagram, inside are 4 yangs, and outside are 2 yins. Yang exceeds yin, and yin does not come up to yang. Therefore, it is called excess of the great. This hexagram represents harmonious blending of the medicinal substances, in which fullness requires use of emptiness. It follows on the previous hexagram, nurturance of the great. In nurturance of the great, one is strong yet can stop and be still. Stilling strength, not letting yang energy get too excessive, is properly the means to nurture strength. In spiritual alchemy, the path of the gold elixir, we take 2 times 8 ounces of the polar energies and congeal them into an embryo. It requires that the great and small be undamaged, and both realms be complete. If yang energy is too strong and yin energy too weak, then yin and yang are not in harmony, and you lose the path of continual renewal. When yin culminates, there will be decay, and when yang culminates, there will be deterioration. Going on in this way, the trouble of the ridgepole bending and breaking is inevitable. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. If you can proceed breezily without becoming too intense, being harmonious and easygoing without clinging, mastering the ability to adapt to changes, preventing danger and being aware of perils, then firmness and flexibility will correspond. Yin and yang will balance each other. Though great, you can avoid excess, so that it is beneficial to go somewhere. consummating essence and perfecting life you develop without hindrance. Now back to our primary hexagram to read our changing lines 3 and 5. These changing lines have the general context. Changing line 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3 of our primary hexagram 40, liberation, solution, in brackets. Changing line 3, riding, bearing a burden causes enemies to arrive. Even being righteous, one is humiliated. Explanation. Being ignorant and acting arbitrarily, with vain imaginings about the celestial treasure, trying to coerce the human mind without having the mind of Tao. Using the mind to rule the mind, one is not only unable to get rid of the human mentality, one in fact invites the human mentality. This is like trying to get on a cart while carrying something, bringing injury on oneself. Even though one's resolution be correct, still, if one relies on one's personal yin and does not seek yang from another, this brings humiliation on a practitioner of the Tao. This is trying to force release from danger when one is weak. And changing line 5. In this, the superior person has liberation, which is fortunate. There is earnestness in regard to the inferior person. Explanation. Emptying the human mind to seek the mind of Tao is wherein lies the liberation of the superior person. The mind of Tao is the mind of the superior person. The human mind is the mind of the inferior person. Whether the mind of Tao has become liberated or not can be checked in the human mind. Only when the human mind has been thoroughly sublimated is the mind of Tao released from difficulty. If there is even a bit of the human mentality, the mind of Tao has not yet been released from difficulty. Therefore, those who practice the Tao should make the utmost effort to strike a balance between looseness and tightness, and not let there be the slightest pollution. This is liberation, sublimating the aggregate of yin. Now we'll turn to the commentary section to read our primary and secondary hexagrams. Keep in mind that our changing lines were our most focused part of our reading still. In the back here, 40 is called dissolution. Thunder above, water below. Thunder and rain act dissolving. Thus do superior people forgive faults and pardon crimes. Dissolution means shedding, dispersing. Above is thunder, below is water. Thunder rolls, rain falls. Thunder and rain both act, and the celestial and earthly energies commune. This is the image of dissolution. What superior people see in this is that when the force of mundanity is congealed and stagnant, practitioners of the Tao should use intense effort to burn it away. Then, when the celestial energy has returned, they should use gentle effort to nurture it. Each phase has its proper time, which does not allow deviation or delay. Therefore, after the force of mundanity has been dissolved, They forgive faults and pardon crimes, going along naturally to cause it to evaporate and disappear of itself, not allowing any force. People have faults and commit crimes because of obeying acquired conditioning, which obscures the primal. Indulging emotions and giving free rein to cravings, they will go to any lengths. This is why there needs to be effort to attain self-mastery and self-control. Mastery and control means correcting faults and eliminating misdeeds, using energy to transform the temperament. When the temperament has been sublimated, the primordial comes back. With the mind of Tao always present, the human mentality does not arise. Once faults and wrongdoings are eliminated, there is no more need to work on mastery and control. To forgive means to forgive past faults. To pardon means to pardon past misdeeds. Forgiving and pardoning, sane energy grows, strong, and aberrant energy spontaneously disappears. The real remains and the false does not come. Otherwise, if one does not know when to stop at sufficiency and still keeps thinking about misdeeds and faults, after all, this is doing things with the human mentality, which again calls on faults and errors after they had been eliminated. What had been dissolved now does not dissolve. The danger of mundanity still remains, and celestial energy is not pure. This is what is meant by the saying, to try to eliminate errant thoughts doubles the affliction. To aim for reality as it is also is a mistake. And our supporting hexagram 28. Great excess. Lake above, wind below. Moisture destroys wood in excess. Thus superior people stand alone without fear and leave society without distress. Great excess is excess of the great. Above is lake, associated with moisture. Below is wind, associated with wood. The nature of water is to flow downward. The nature of wood is to float upward. When water rises above wood, it can destroy wood. And when wood descends below water, it can be destroyed by the moisture. This is the image of great excess. What superior people see in this is that just as a great excess of moisture can destroy wood, so can a great excess of talent and intelligence in people destroy their character. Therefore, they take the model of water, rising above wood in the sense of standing alone without fear, and take the model of wood descending below water in the sense of concealing themselves and being free from distress. Thus they accomplish the will of a person of exceeding greatness, and perfect the character of a person of exceeding greatness. Because superior people who practice the Tao consider nature and life to be the most important matter, they look down upon all existence as empty of absoluteness, being like a clear lake unsullied by the dust of objects. They make use of the phenomena of the world to practice the principles of the Tao, playing a unique tune on an individual harp. Unmoved by the prospects of life or death, they stand aloof of all things without fear. Like the flexibility of wood, they have talent but do not presume upon it. They have intelligence but do not rely on it. Though simple in appearance, they hold a treasure. Concealing their illumination and nurturing it in obscurity, they do not seek to be known to others. They are hidden in a profound privacy and have no distress. Having no fear means that one cannot be constrained by things. Having will and energy far beyond that of others. Having no distress means that errant thoughts do not arise, and one has cultivated development far beyond that of others. Because of having no fear and no distress, one can accomplish that which is rare in the world, and be beyond the perception and beyond the reach of ordinary people. next read from James Dekorne and his synthesis of various commentaries on each of our hexagrams, including our changing lines. He calls 40 liberation. Other titles might be deliverance, the symbol of loosening, release, eliminating obstacles, taking apart, untangled, solution, dissolution, relief, unloose, release of tension. Judgment, leg. Liberation finds advantage in the southwest. When the operation is completed, a return to stability brings good fortune. If operations are incomplete, it is best to finish them quickly. Ritsama/Karcher, taking apart, harvesting western south, without a place to go, one's coming returns significant. Possessing directed going, daybreak significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of reflection and release from tension. It emphasizes that analyzing and understanding things in order to be delivered from compulsion is the adequate way to handle it. The image, Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes thunder and rain bringing release. The superior man tends to forgive wrongs and deals leniently with crimes. The component trigrams suggest that a certain amount of forceful action is required. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Liberation shows the trigram of movement above the trigram of danger. Through movement, there is an escape from peril. An early movement to the southwest wins the allegiance of the masses and returns the state to normalcy and equilibrium. When heaven and earth are freed from the grasp of winter, we have thunder and rain. When these come, the buds of the fruit-producing vegetation begin to open. Great indeed are the phenomena in the time of liberation. Leg. The written Chinese character for liberation is the symbol of unloosing, untying a knot, or unraveling a complication. This hexagram denotes a condition in which the obstruction and difficulty of the preceding figure have been removed. The lesson is how this new and better state of the kingdom should be dealt with. If no tasks remain to be completed, the sooner things resume their normal course, the better. If further operations are necessary, let them be accomplished without delay. The Konghasi editors say that moving to the south and west is the same as returning to normality. Thunder and rain cleared the atmosphere, and a feeling of oppression is relieved. The images of springtime in the Confucian commentary refer to the gentle policy of a conquering ruler who forgives the opposition of those who cease to offer resistance. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Do what obviously needs to be done and return to stability as soon as possible. The superior man forgives, forgets, and bears no grudges, i.e., stability is more important than fixing blame or haggling over who is right. If the 39th hexagram of impasse is turned upside down, it becomes the 40th hexagram of liberation or deliverance. The two figures represent opposite situations. If impasse creates tension, then liberation releases it. The upper trigram of movement ascends to escape from the lower trigram of danger, giving us an unambiguous image of freedom and relief. A quote from H. Jonas in The Gnostic Religion. Apart from all personification, the whole of space in which life finds itself has a malevolently spiritual character, and the demons themselves are as much spatial realms as they are persons. To overcome them is the same thing as to pass through them, and in breaking through their boundaries, this passage at the same time breaks their power and achieves the liberation from the magic of their sphere. Legg's commentary in the preceding hexagram explains that the southwest is the direction of earth, the fertile lowland where life is natural and uncontrived. Confucius tells us here that an early move in this direction will win the allegiance of the masses. Psychologically interpreted, this refers to the inner kingdom of the psyche, where the masses are the drives, emotions, and archetypal complexes which make up our being. The symbolism suggests a conscious freeing up of inner tension. And now a quote from Roberto Asciugoli in Psychosynthesis. These forces, therefore, must not be left to run wild, but should be disposed of in harmless ways, or, better still, used for constructive purposes, creative activities of various kinds, the rebuilding of our personality, contributing to our psychosynthesis. And then to our supporting hexagram 28, before coming back to read our changing lines. 28 he calls critical mass. Other titles might be preponderance of the great, the symbol of great passing, excess, the passing of greatness, great surpassing, great gains, experience, greater than great, greatness in excess, dominance by the mighty, the passing of greatness, excess of the great, law of karma. Judgment, leg. Critical mass depicts a weak beam. Under such conditions, it is advantageous to move in any direction whatever. Success is indicated. Blowfold, excess. The ridgepole sags. It is favorable to have some goal or destination in view. Success. A glance at the hexagram will show that it is too heavy in the middle and too weak at the ends. A number of firm lines is generally auspicious, but there can be too much of a good thing. Ritsuma/Karcher, great exceeding, the ridgepole sagging, harvesting, possessing directed going, growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of your connection to a ruling principle. It emphasizes that pushing the guiding idea beyond ordinary limits and accepting the results is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary, 1. When the great is excessive, the ridgepole bends. It is good to go somewhere. That is developmental. When the ridgepole snaps, the whole house falls down. In the same way, practitioners of the Tao who promote yang too much, who do not know when enough is enough, who can be great but cannot be small, suffer damage to their spiritual house. Now for the image. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes a forest submerged in a great body of water. The superior man, though standing alone, is free from fear. He feels no discontent in withdrawing from the world. This is suggested by the component trigrams. Water is necessary for the nourishment of the trees, but too much of it can cause serious damage. Ritsuma/Karcher, marsh submerging wood, great exceeding. A chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses solitary establishing not to fear. A chunsu uses retiring from the age without melancholy. Cleary 2. Moisture destroys wood, developed people, etc. Only when sustained by the power to stand alone without fear and avoid society without distress can learning be firmly rooted and development have a proper basis. Then it is possible to refine and support the mediocre. Confucian commentary. Confucius/Leg. Excess is weakly supported at either end, with weakness in both the lowest and topmost lines. The dynamic lines are in excess, but 2 of them are in the central positions. The trigrams of flexibility and satisfaction indicate that there will be advantage in moving in any direction whatever. There will be success. Great indeed is the work to be done during this extraordinary time. Leg. Extraordinary times require extraordinary skill in their management. The figure shows 2 magnetic lines at top and bottom, with 4 dynamic lines between them, giving the image of a great beam unable to sustain its own weight. Lines 2 and 5 are both dynamic and central, however, and from this and the attributes of the component trigrams a good auspice is obtained. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. A stressful situation is best managed with the comprehensive strategy, or in the chess game of life, one succeeds by planning several moves in advance. The superior man serves the work by going his own way, regardless of public opinion. Wilhelm titles this hexagram Preponderance of the Great. I prefer R.L. Wing's paraphrase of critical mass as more evocative of the figure's meaning in modern terminology. In critical mass, 4 dynamic lines lurk inside of the hexagram, weakly contained at top and bottom by 2 magnetic lines. This energetic concentration could explode in an unpredictable release of force, and hence the judgment tells us to move now. Remember, non-action is also action, to avoid unwanted consequences. Often the outcome is predictable. Be prepared to just walk away if and when that is your best move. Legg's translation of the judgment is, "It is advantageous to move in any direction whatever." This is a different message than Wilhelm's. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. Legg's version implies an almost hysterical flight from danger, while Wilhelm's rendition suggests prior intention and planning. The latter interpretation is definitely what is meant here, as confirmed by Cleary's Buddhist commentary. When the transformative path is flourishing, contaminations easily arise. It is best to set up guidelines and regulations. When meditation work is advanced, ignorance is about to dissolve. It is best to exercise the mind skillfully. Coupled with Cleary's translation of the image as developed people stand alone without fear, avoid society without distress, the idea is that one should follow one's best intuition and ignore popular illusions, political correctness, or inner fears. Psychologically, conventional thinking, socially conditioned reflexes, knee-jerk responses, etc. During a time of critical mass, pay close attention to direction from the self to preserve the work. This is not the time to follow the crowd. Sometimes this can mean that you are obliged to go it alone, one of their work's frequent tests. A quote from G. Knight in A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism. The gulf is something that has to be leaped, and leaped alone, stripped of all hindering burdens in faith. It is thus one of the crisis points of spiritual progress because of the great temptation to turn back from the unknown to the apparent safety of known things, and to succumb to this temptation is to lose all the fruits of past endeavor. Suggestions for meditation. Compare the judgment and image of this hexagram with those of hexagram number 32, consistency. Anthony, we must regain modesty through the effort to rid ourselves of strong elements that cause us to press forward. The strong elements may exist in someone else, causing them to assault us with their fear, mistrust, or doubt. Strong refers to impetuous movement to resolve what is ambiguous. We can meet the challenge by remaining detached and letting things go through their changes. To be truly rich is to remain modest. To be truly powerful is to remain reticent. Now back to our primary hexagram to read changing lines 3 and 5, which again have the general context. Changing line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3. The third line, magnetic, this is leg, shows a porter with his burden, yet riding in a carriage. He will only tempt robbers to attack him. However firm and correct he may try to be, there will be cause for regret. Blowfold. Traveling with both luggage bearers and a carriage, he attracted the attention of robbers. To persist would bring misfortune. This could mean that someone bearing luggage on his back rides in a carriage. In any case, the Chinese additional commentaries explain that the passage refers to those who usurp privileges to which they are not entitled by rank or merit. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. For a porter with his burden to be riding in a carriage is a thing to be ashamed of. It is he himself that tempts the robbers to come. On whom, besides, can we lay the blame? Wilhelm/Baines. He should really be ashamed of himself. When I myself thus attract robbers, on whom shall I lay the blame? Blowfold. Moreover, his using both of them was shameful. If I were to act thus and bring robbers down on me, who but myself would be to blame? The master said, the makers of the I-ming may be said to have known the philosophy of robbery. The I-ming says, he is a burden bearer and yet rides in a carriage, thereby exciting robbers to attack him. Burden bearing is the business of an inferior man. A carriage is the vehicle of a gentleman. When an inferior man rides in the vehicle of a gentleman, robbers will think of taking it from him. When one is insolent to those above him and oppressive to those below, robbers will wish to attack him. Careless laying up of things excites to robbery, as a woman's adorning of herself excites to lust. What the I-ming says about the burden bearers riding in a carriage and exciting robbers to attack him shows how robbery is called out. Leg. The third line is magnetic where it should be dynamic. In the top place of the lower trigram, it suggests the idea of a porter riding in a carriage. People will say, how did he get there? The things cannot be his own. Therefore, robbers will attack and plunder him since he can't protect himself or accomplish anything good. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man has obtained material goods and comfort and seeks a life of ease which does not suit his nature. Like a woman's self-adornment which excites to lust, this way of life merely invites robbers and leads to humiliation. Wing. You have been able to assume a somewhat powerful position which you do not know how to control. You pretend to be something that you are not. This invites envy. If you continue in this way, you will suffer humiliation at the hands of others who would usurp your position. Editor. Receiving this line can be a reprimand for an unworthy attitude. It shows one who aspires beyond his station or who incorrectly seeks an easy solution to his problems. If this is the only changing line, the hexagram becomes number 32, consistency, the corresponding line of which begins, shows one who does not constantly maintain his virtue. The idea is that a desire to move ahead quickly tempts one into an improper response to the situation at hand. Sometimes the context of the question can suggest that the vehicle, carriage, is the oracle itself. You want it to answer a question you can figure out for yourself. The porter's burden is an obvious responsibility or duty. The robbers are anything that would harm the work. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. The acceptance of the need to relate to a power or powers beyond our personal control and rational comprehension does not necessitate, indeed does not even permit, abandonment of our personal responsibility, but rather requires of us that in the domain of the personal life, assigned to us our own responsibility must be exerted to the limits. He breaks down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B, changing line 3. A, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Get your head out of the clouds and assume your responsibilities. And B, did you expect a spiritual helicopter to take you to the top of the mountain? We'll get to changing line 5 when I put this cat in the house. Yeesh. Changing line 5. Leg. The fifth line magnetic shows the superior man, the ruler, executing his function of removing whatever is injurious to the idea of liberation, in which case there will be good fortune, and confidence in him will be shown even by the inferior men. Blowfold. Only the superior man brings release, good fortune. It is up to lesser men to put their trust in him. This could also mean he has confidence in lesser men. Ritsama/Karcher, a Chunsu, or chief son, or superior man, holding fast possesses taking apart, significant, possessing conformity, tending towards small people. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, when he removes the barriers to liberation, the inferior men will of themselves retire. Wilhelm/Baines, the superior man delivers himself because inferior men then retreat. Blowfold, but when the superior man offers them release, they take to their heels. Perhaps this means the true release involves release from selfishness, a lesson which men of little merit have no desire to learn. Leg. Line 5 is magnetic in a dynamic place, but the place is that of the ruler, whose duty is to promote liberation by removing all barriers to harmony within the kingdom, especially all the inferior men symbolized by the divided lines. He can do this with the help of his dynamic correlate in the second line. Then even the inferior men will change their ways and conform to his will. The inferior men retire means that believing in the sincerity of the ruler's determination to remove all evil men, they either retire of themselves or strive to conform to his wishes. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man drives away inferior people through an inner resolve and makes a complete mental and spiritual break. They recognize his earnestness, withdraw of their own accord, and even extend begrudging approval. Wing. In order to eliminate an inferior habit or situation, you must first make an inner resolve to overcome it. Only you can save yourself. Once you are liberated, inferior elements will retreat into the background and you will win the respect you deserve. Good fortune. Editor. The context of the line does not lend itself to the usual gender symbolism used in this book. Wilhelm renders this in a conditional sense. If only the superior man can deliver himself. Blowfold and Liu say that only the superior man can liberate himself. There is the implication that your superiority may be in question. You are challenged to take appropriate action to liberate yourself from your fetters. This will be in accordance with the ruler's central place and an active balancing of forces as imaged in the relationship with the second line correlate. And a quote from Maimonides. For when the body gets out of equilibrium, we look to which side inclines in becoming unbalanced, and then oppose it with its contrary until it returns to equilibrium. When it is in equilibrium, we remove that counterbalance and revert to that which keeps the body in equilibrium. We act in a similar manner with regard to moral habits. He breaks down line 5 into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A. Identify and eliminate the problem or limiting belief. Clear the psyche of inhibitions. And B. If you stop indulging your weaknesses, they will eventually leave you alone. We'll read next from Hilary Barrett's I-ming, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. Hexagram 40, she calls release. Key questions. If nothing could bind you, where would you go? Do you have to? Who says? Which path leads to where you want to be? Oracle. Release. Fruitful in the southwest, with no place to go. To turn round and come back is good fortune. With a direction to go, daybreak, good fortune. To release is to liberate, to solve problems, to untie knots. The first step towards release is a move southwest. No longer battling on to pursue the mission, but going back to your roots and reconnecting with home and allies. When you know where you're coming from, it becomes a lot easier to be clear about where you're going. If your path has no real destination, turn back. If it has purpose, start your journey as early as you can. If you have no good reason to continue on as before, come back to your starting point and let that cycle reach its end. If you have a goal in mind, why not start exploring ways to attain it right away? This would be such simple advice if only we didn't spend our lives being pulled down paths that lead nowhere as if by invisible strings. Image. Thunder and rain do their work. Release. A noble one pardons transgressions and forgives crimes. Imagine the air after a thunderstorm, clean, clear, all the tension released. Humans do the work of thunder and rain through forgiveness. Just as in the Trigrams, thunder comes forth from an inner trigram, representing rain and flowing water, so action can spring from fluidity rather than from a rigid stance. Think of a master of Tai Chi in motion or a springing cat. Forgiveness frees us from the bonds of inevitability. A line crossed need not mean there must be retribution. Punishment doesn't have to follow from crime. It's rare that we're truly forced to respond in a certain way or obliged to make up for our own past mistakes or omissions. Sequence. Release follows from Hexagram 39, limping. Things cannot end with hardship, and so release follows. Release means letting things take their time. There comes a time when there has been enough struggle. Release means ending the battle with the world and starting to reconnect with its natural flow. And our supporting hexagram 28, she calls great exceeding. Key questions: what is overloaded? What have you outgrown? What must you do? Oracle. Great exceeding, the ridgepole warps, fruitful to have a direction to go, creating success. When you exceed something, you cross over a line and make a transition. The traditional Chinese house has a structure like an old-fashioned tent. Uprights support a horizontal ridgepole, and all the weight of roof and walls is suspended from there. Here, the ridgepole's limits have been exceeded. The supporting framework is no longer adequate to the weight it's asked to bear. This means stress and also a greatness of spirit and purpose that goes beyond the scope of the situation. It is fruitful to have a direction to go, to reach out imaginatively and explore. Since things cannot hold up as they are, there must be movement. Image. The lake submerges the tree, great exceeding. A noble one stands alone without fear, withdraws from the time without sadness. Water should sustain the tree, but an excess will drown it. Interaction and communication should sustain you, but too much will be overwhelming, drowning the natural growth of your spirit in a flood of demands and expectations. You cannot possibly absorb all these demands and preoccupations into your own identity. You would only lose yourself. So a noble one is not afraid to stand alone, nor is she depressed at leaving society behind. She is moved by an inner purpose and not a product of her environment. Sequence. Great exceeding follows from hexagram 27, nourishment. With no nurturance, it is not possible to act, and so great exceeding follows. Great exceeding is the opposite experience to nourishment, imbalance instead of balance, overloading the structure instead of living within it. But to be capable of the dynamic action great exceeding requires, you need to be well nourished. Back to our primary hexagram 40 to read our changing lines, again, which have the general context, changing line 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3 of our primary hexagram 40, release. Shouldering a burden while also riding in a carriage invites the arrival of bandits, constancy, shame. Either you carry the burden or else you are carried along. Either the weight is yours alone to bear, or else you have gifts and support that allow you to travel further and more freely. But to attempt both at once only goes to show that you haven't mastered the nature of carriages and are unsuited to ride in one. Bandits are magnetically drawn to such disharmony. Other people ready to take what you never really owned, or your own inner thieves of self-confidence and purpose. Trying to hold on to two incompatible roles is no longer sustainable. Carrying on in this inauthentic state leads to shame. This is the moment to ask yourself what is natural and sustainable for you. Are you comfortable riding in the carriage? Is this who you are? Or would you be more comfortable with a slower, more down-to-earth approach? Is this baggage yours to carry? Or would you still be yourself if you relinquished your grip on it? And changing line 5, a noble one bound is released. Good fortune. There is truth towards small people. The noble one is not truly trapped. She can find a way to express herself even within constraints because they never touch her essential self. Simply by being who she is, regardless of opinions or circumstances, her presence communicates freely and powerfully with others. She can reach and convince even those who lack their quality of imaginative freedom, and restore sincerity even where people are hidebound by rules and roles. Read chapter 36 out of the Tao Te Ching, translated by Jiafu Fang and Jane English. That which shrinks must first expand. That which fails must first be strong. That which is cast down must first be raised. Before receiving, there must be giving. This is called perception of the nature of things. Soft and weak overcome hard and strong. Fish cannot leave deep waters, and a country's weapons should not be displayed.